Somewhere on the other side of the world, a butterfly flaps its wings. You'll never see it, you'll never know it happened, and it might just be the reason your whole life turns out the way it does. That's the butterfly effect. You've probably heard the cute version, but the real story is so much stranger, and honestly, way cooler. It starts with a tired scientist, a clunky old computer, and one of the most important accidents in the history of science. Think about the smallest thing you did today, which way you turned, a text you almost didn't send, the 30 seconds you spent hunting for your keys. Felt like nothing, right? And mostly, it is nothing. We all walk around assuming small stuff stays small, tiny cause, tiny effect. You kind of have to, or you'd never make it out the door. But every now and then, life pulls the curtain back. You meet the love of your life because you were bored one night and said, fine, one drink. You land the job that changes everything because someone you've never met happened to quit that week, and you can feel it. Your whole life swinging on something that almost didn't happen. Almost everyone has a story like that. The chance meeting, the coin flip decision you barely thought about, the one tiny detail where, if it had gone the other way, your whole life looks nothing like it does now. For most of history, that was just called luck, fate, a good story to tell at parties. And then in 1961, a quiet weather scientist proved it's a real hard rule of the universe, completely by accident. His name was Edward Lorenz, and he'd built a tiny toy version of the weather inside one of those room-sized 1960s computers, a little fake sky he could run forward and watch, one day at a time. One morning he wanted to rerun a stretch of weather he'd already seen, so instead of starting from the beginning, he just typed in a number from an earlier printout, 0.506. Then he went to grab a coffee. Here's what he didn't realize. Inside its memory, the computer had actually been using a longer number, 0.506127. He'd rounded it off. We're talking a difference about the size of a butterfly bumping the air, basically nothing. He came back, and the weather on the screen was completely, unrecognizably different. Same equations, same machine, one rounded off number, and a totally different world. At first he figured the computer was broken. It wasn't. It was doing exactly what it was told. And that's the part that stopped him cold. Because it meant the thing we all just assume, small cause, small effect, isn't actually true. That tiny difference didn't stay tiny, it doubled, then doubled again, and kept doubling, until two forecasts that started out nearly identical had absolutely nothing in common. That's the sneaky thing about doubling. It looks harmless for a while, and then it just runs away from you. A gap so small you'd need a microscope to spot it becomes the difference between a calm afternoon and a thunderstorm. Lorenz gave it a name, and it's a mouthful: sensitive dependence on initial conditions. In plain English, nudge the start by a hair, and you change the ending completely. And here's where it gets really fun. This wasn't just a weather thing. That exact same rule is hiding inside almost anything that moves and changes. A dripping faucet, the swings of the stock market, animal populations booming and crashing, the rhythm of a heartbeat, a crowd, your life. Once people knew to look for it, they couldn't stop seeing it. This one quiet rule, tucked inside nearly everything that flows. It's also the reason, and this one's weirdly satisfying, that nobody can tell you the weather more than about 2 weeks out. It's not that forecasters are bad at their jobs or the computers are too slow. It's that the atmosphere hides its future in decimal places too tiny to ever measure. 2 weeks is basically a wall. It always will be. Oh, and one more thing. Later, Lorenz simplified his little weather right down and graphed the path it traced, and that path never crossed itself, never repeated, never settled. It just looped around forever, following strict rules where every point was locked in by the one before it, and somehow still never doing the same thing twice. Totally fixed rules, totally unpredictable results, at the same time. And the shape it drew? It looked almost like a joke, exactly like a pair of butterfly wings. Now, when this whole idea got out into the world, it picked up that famous nickname, the butterfly effect, and a warm, feel-good message to go with it. A butterfly flaps in Brazil, a tornado spins up in Texas, so every little thing you do matters. Your small kindnesses ripple outward. You're never too small to change the world. It's a lovely thought. It's in 100 movies and graduation speeches, and it's not wrong exactly. It's just half the story, the half that makes us feel good. The other half is the one Lorenz actually cared about, and it's even more interesting. Quick fun fact first. Lorenz didn't even pick the butterfly. He blanked on a title for a talk back in 1972, so a colleague made one up for him. Butterfly, Brazil, tornado, Texas. Lorenz's own example had been a plain old seagull. The most famous image in modern science was basically a last-minute fill-in. But that talk had a second line almost nobody ever quotes. He pointed out that if a butterfly's flap can cause a tornado, it can just as easily prevent one. The same little flap. It could start the storm or stop it. And there's no way, none, to know which. That's the real butterfly effect. Not just small things matter, but that they matter in ways nobody, including you, could ever trace or predict. Every little thing you do sends ripples out into the future, good and bad all tangled together, way too far and too fast for anyone to follow. Hold a door for a stranger and you nudge their morning, which nudges their afternoon, which nudges who knows what, years down the line. You'll never find out. Nobody could. That's kind of the whole point. And here's the kicker. This isn't even randomness. Lorenz's world had zero luck in it. Every moment locked in by the one before. It's all rules. It's completely determined. And it's still impossible to predict. The future isn't a mystery because it hasn't been decided. It's a mystery because it's written in numbers too small for anyone to ever read. Even Lorenz never fully got over it. Asked years later whether a butterfly can really cause a tornado, he just sort of shrugged. Even today, I am unsure of the proper answer. So here's where it lands. You could hear all this and feel kind of small. Don't. Because if nobody can predict where the ripples go, not you, not the smartest person alive, not the biggest supercomputer on the planet, then the future is genuinely wide open. Every single person who ever lived has been winging it into the unknown. No idea if it would work out. And look around, the whole world got built anyway. Nobody ever had a map. They just took the next step, and then the one after that, and somehow, here we all are. You will never know which tiny thing you do tomorrow ends up being the one that matters. The text, the wrong turn. One of them might be the flap that starts somebody's storm, or quietly stops it. You don't get to know, and honestly, that's kind of a great way to walk around. You're here at all because a few thousand tiny accidents happen to line up just right. And starting tomorrow, you get to be one of those accidents in someone else's story, the little nudge they'll never notice that changes everything. The question was never whether you matter. It's that you'll never know how much. So, what are you going to do with that?